Good morning, a guten Erev Shabbos to all of you. Today is a special day, for besides it being Friday and Shabbos is coming, it's also the day when we celebrate and we commemorate the miraculous victory in the 6-day war when Israel captured and was able to liberate the city of Jerusalem and united again together. It happened on the 28th day of Iyar, which is today. And it's interesting because when you look in chapter 122, like a city that was united. And from 1948 till 1967, Jewish people were not allowed to go into East Jerusalem. They were not allowed to go to the Kotel HaMaravi, the holiest place, the Western Wall, the holiest place for Judaism. It was Yudin Ride. In fact, my dad, who's a Jerusalemite and was born in 1940 in the holy city of Yerushalayim, always reminds me and tells me how he remembers going with his father to the Kotel in the 1940s, because tradition was that 3 times a year you ola regel, you go up to Jerusalem to pray, to celebrate the 3 holidays. And he would walk with his dad, and he remembers going down the steps, because when you come into Jerusalem you go down to the Kotel, and the memories he had. And then for so many years we couldn't, but God gave us a miracle. He gave us a gift that in 1967, with all the Arab armies wanting to annihilate Israel from the river to the ocean and make a second Holocaust, God made the most miraculous victory when in 6 days Israel annihilated all their armies and all their air forces and doubled the size of its land, being able to once again live in Judea and Samaria, which was another Yudin Ride, plus of course Yerushalayim and the Golan Heights. And it's interesting because they say the story about one of the great American generals at West Point was having a lecture where he was talking about the greatest military victories in the 20th century. And someone asked him why he doesn't mention the 6-day war. And he answered, he said, because we're not talking about miracles, we're talking about military victories. The Gentiles, the world recognized that this was a miracle that God did for the Jewish people. And we sometimes forget to recognize the magnitude of the gift that God gave us, to have a united Jerusalem. Forever may it stay united. And it's interesting because the book of Bamidbar is the book where the Jewish people got the Torah, which was the purpose of why we were created. But the question is, why specifically called Bamidbar? And the other question is, we all know in Deuteronomy many times Jerusalem is mentioned, but it's not mentioned by its name. It's mentioned it calls Jerusalem in the place that God will decide to rest His presence. And the question is, why doesn't it tell us Jerusalem? Why does it call it the place that God will decide? And the answer, one of the answers that the rabbis give, is because the Torah is telling the Jewish people a very important message. Yes, there is geographical Jerusalem, which is the holiest place on earth for a Jew. It's a place where wherever we are in the diaspora, and for 2,000 years when we were exiled, we always faced and prayed towards Jerusalem. And also we always said at the end of every Seder and at the end of Yom Kippur, L'Shana Haba B'Yerushalayim, next year in Jerusalem, and at every wedding we break a glass and we remind us of Imashkachechi Yerushalayim Tishkach Yemini, what King David said, that if I forget thy Jerusalem, it's like forgetting my right hand. And that's important to remember. But how did the Jews survive in 2,000 years of exile? And how do we celebrate Jerusalem Day, living in the diaspora, living in America, living wherever else you might live that's not in Israel? And the answer is in Deuteronomy, where God speaks about Jerusalem without calling it by its name. Because what God is saying is, there's a geographical Jerusalem, but there's also a Jerusalem which we make through our presence, through our impact. That wherever you might be in the world, you might not be in Israel. You might not be in Jerusalem, but your heart could be there. You could make your surroundings a place like Jerusalem. You can make your surroundings holy and purposeful and meaningful. And that's why the Torah was given in the desert. And that's why the time when we celebrate Shavuot, we celebrate it in Bamidbar, because the message to us is to remember wherever you are, you could make it holy and purposeful and meaningful. There's a story with the Tzemach Tzedek, who was the third Lubavitcher Rebbe, where one of his Chassidim who really wanted to make Aliyah to Israel from Russia, but it was very hard. And he was devastated. And he came to the Rebbe and he said, I can't go to Israel, but I would like to go. What do I do? And the Rebbe told him in Yiddish, Mach do Eretz Yisrael, make Israel here, make Jerusalem here. By you living a life of meaning, of purpose, of spirituality, of godliness, even living in White Russia, even living in Chestnut Hill, or even living in New York or Paris or China, wherever you may be, you can make the atmosphere of Jerusalem. May Hashem give us that we should have the geographical Jerusalem united forever under control of the Jewish people, in a place that everyone could come and find purpose and meaning and pray to one God, the one God of the whole world. But may we also merit that in our own homes, in our own hearts, in our own communities, in our own lives, we should be able to have the Jerusalem of heart. God bless you and have a Shabbat Shalom.